Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. A few weeks ago I did a video, 500-mile review on my boosted board Mini X, and a portion of that video I decided I wanted to show a little bit about the cleaning and the maintenance I do. I wanted to make another video that went into a full detailed or a better description to the tips, tricks, and techniques that I've either learned elsewhere or figured out on my own since owning a boosted board. And these are just things that I do to help keep it clean and maintained, to try to keep my boosted boards running at full optimal performance, as best as they could be. Now, this is nothing that that I'm saying is required or needs to be done, or your boosted board's going to fall apart, nothing like that. Or I'm not saying that this is what Boosted recommends. These are just things that I've gathered over time that I feel keep my boosted boards running very well. The other part of this video I want to show is, unfortunately, I've run into another motor issue. Now, some of the boosted board motors have been known to go bad due to the two bearings that are inside the motor itself seize up, and then they start to wear off on the shaft, allowing the shaft and the motor where the bearings are to vibrate because they're not as tight as they once were when the metal is at its full. So there's a way to test that, and I'll show that when I have the boosted board apart, other than the sound that it makes. The other reason why I like to keep these boards maintained and cleaned is, I spent a lot of money on them. The boosted board itself, you're looking at $1,500–1,600 bucks, and the boosted board Mini X, you're looking at about $1,000. So there's one thing. Anything that you own, you want to maintain, your car, mountain bike, boosted boards, whatever. The other reason is safety. Like I was just saying, keeping it running at its optimal performance, I feel that much safer on the board because I feel like it's run the way it should be. Anyway, I tried to keep this video as short as possible, but I wanted to keep it as thorough as possible, and it ended up being, close to 20 minutes, maybe a little bit plus. So check it out. If you see something that you do differently, I love learning new things, please list it below. Or if you see something that that you want to add on that I didn't do, just add that on as well. All right, so we're all set up. I have my board prepared, ready to go. I got on a couple of towels so the grip tape doesn't scratch up the table or wear it down. I have all my tools in line. So the tools we're going to be using is, I have my my regular skate key, the boosted board key, which I'm not going to be using, but I just have it out. I have my 3mm Allen key, my 6mm Allen key, my the battery wrenches that come from Boosted. I have my 1/4-inch hand drive nut driver with the from, I think it's Craftsman. It's kind of worn off, so it's hard to see. And I have my Craftsman Craftsman 1/4-inch drive, 1/2-inch size, 6-point socket. That's the exact right size for what I need to pop out the big bearing from the back wheels. And I use this bent screwdriver for removing the wires from the clamps on the back motors. All right, so I have a few cameras going so I could try to get all possible angles, and I'll try to get this real good for you. The table is a little shaky, so I apologize here and there. You might get a little shake when I'm loosening up some wheels, but let's get into it. All right, so we're gonna start with the fronts because the fronts are the easier of the two. Kind of just keep everything off to the side in nice, neat order. When you take off the fronts, you gotta get the inner and outer washer, the nut driver. When you take off the inner bearings, or inner and outer bearing, you go right on the edge of the board so you can kind of work it out like a loose tooth. Then you get the spacer, and then the other side. You see all the dirt that's built up already. So I'll just kind of clean out the seated area where the bearings are. Get that seated area nice and clean. All the dirt and crap that builds up inside. All right. I predominantly use a regular dry towel, but if I need to get some really caked up, I have these Kleenex germ removal hand towel wipes. They don't have any harsh chemicals that could kind of eat away at the plastic or anything. They'll just get that caked in dirt and crap out of there for you. And then I'll just dry it out to get it all nice and clean. Boosted. I'm glad you're making your own wheels and everything. I don't understand the white centers. They get real dirty real quick. I want to show real dirty real quick. All right, now I'll kind of wipe clean the bearings, the nut, the washers, make sure they're nice and clean. My 2 brushes. Now I'll take my wire brush, just a regular wire brush, kind of clean up, and then I'll just wipe it clean. All right, and now I'm forgetting everything. All right, so now on the bearings themselves, I'll pop off the dust cap so I can expose the bearings, and then I'll take my Bowen Speed Cream, and I will just do 2 drops. That's it, nothing more. You don't need anything more than that. Make sure everything looks nice in there. Snap it in, make sure I hear the click. And then I'll do the other side. Get that in there. So now I got everything nice and clean. Put on the first washer. Okay, something I do, again, these are just tips, tricks, and techniques that I've learned over time and from other people. I just started doing myself. We'll put in the outer bearing first. Sometimes the metal from the bearings versus the hard plastic on the wheel will give you a little creaking noise. So I'll take a very little bit of white lithium grease, just enough to skim it. You know, no caking up, no nothing, just a very light amount. And then this way, when it's in there, you don't need it to push it in. You can push it in without it. I do it so when I'm riding with it, every now and then I'll hear a little creaking from the steel, from the bearings, and the plastic. And it's just my personal preference. All right, I got the inner washer on. Now I'm gonna get the inner bearing. Again, just a touch of the white lithium grease. A very thin skim amount. I'm gonna put that on. My spacer's nice and clean. I got that. And now for my wheel, I got the outer one. Everything's all clean. It's to my liking. I'm gonna make sure it's nice and straight. We're good. And just collapse it in. Nice and easy and good. Put the outer washer back on. It's imperative you make sure you have those washers and the spacers for it to operate properly. The washers, the spacers, and the inner part of the bearings all work nice and tight together, so when you tighten it up, none of the pressure goes on the outside where the bearing is, so everything spins nice and loose and free. So don't lose the washers. Make sure the spacer gets put back in. Now tighten it up all the way, just to make sure everything is collapsed in where it should be. And then I just back off like a half a turn, but make sure it's snug, so I don't get any wiggle, but I'll get a nice spin out of it. Nice and easy. That's how I do the fronts. So now I'm going to do the other side. All right. Now that's the front. I mean, describing it and kind of walking through it took a couple extra minutes, but I mean, really quick and easy. They're clean, they're maintained, I feel good, everything's in good working order, the bearings are well lubricated, everything's dirt free, good. All right, now let's get the back. All right. So I'm gonna take my 3mm and we'll start on this side. Okay. Okay, so when you take them off, just kind of turn it while you pull so the belt comes off nice and smooth and easy off the motor. And then just make sure you get the inner washer. You don't want to lose anything. The belts are turned inside out, so I can inspect them. Okay, so I'm looking at the belts. I'll get the brush, I'll just kind of clean them out. I've had little stones, little rocks embedded in here. Little pain in the ass, they go everywhere. All right, that belt looks good. I know they're in good shape because I just put them on not that long ago. So, but I looked them over anyway because you never know when an unusual or an unaged tear or crack starts to happen. All right, so they're nice and clean. All right, wipe off the dirt first. All right, so the first thing I want to do is, like the fronts, I want to get the outer bearing out. So I just put it in a little bit, just kind of work all directions to get it out. Now, the center one. This is the one that's a little tricky. It's embedded in there really well. You're not going to pull it out with your finger, at least I'm not. So that's where I take my 1/4" nut driver. I found out of all the sockets, the 1/2" 6-sided one worked the best for me. It goes in nice and easy. Now it goes in the center, but it'll stay right on the inner part of the bearing. So I am pushing on the metal and not on the bearing area. And I'll just give it a couple little taps, and then it's out. All right. So we'll take our wiping cloth and get it all clean. Dry it out nice. Sorry about that barking, the neighbor's dog. He's friendly. All right, now on the Stealth, they have a metal gearing system. So I'll take the wire brush and I'll just clean it out. Make sure all the dirt, debris is out of there. All right, so that side's good. Now let's see the other side. So now, let's get our bearings lubed up. Okay. So now we'll do our drops. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, let's clean up the back axles. Again, I just kind of straighten out the treads a little, clean them. And I'll normally just clean up my motors with a regular toothbrush, just kind of clear out the dirt and the dust that builds up where the gear is. It all builds up inside of there. Now, how they normally spin, this is how you want to test them to see when the motors are starting to go bad. Hear that clicking? That means that, this side's bad too. That means that the bearings inside of here are seized up and it's wearing down on the actual shaft itself, which is bad. Okay, so the bearings aren't working, they're frozen, wearing on the metal on the shaft, now it's got that play. And it's going to continue to wear and be bad and the motors are gone. All right, so here's how you replace them. Okay, so the first thing I do before I take them off, I apologize, is I release the wires. And I don't want to put too much pressure on the wire itself. So I got this angled screwdriver so I can go right where the pressure point is and not pull on a wire to break it free. Just a pet peeve of mine, I just don't want to snap them. And maybe they're hard to snap, I don't know, I just don't want to do it. All right, so now I'll take that 3mm. All right, now I'm just gonna slide it straight out. The wire feeds through, and there's your motor. There's your wire connections. The inlet, they only go in one way. You have to line up the arrow on here with the arrow on there. So that's that motor. Okay, I've had the bad luck of having a bad motor before, so it's not my first time doing it. But Boosted service was fantastic. We ran through some tests, made sure it wasn't something like dirt, debris, leaves, or sticks or anything, to determine it definitely was 100% the motor, which it was. Sent them the video, serial number, my info, and they were really cool. Sent me out the new ones. And voila. Now, while I got it all apart and wide open, whilst I'm cleaning, so these skid plates, they are not just replaceable, but they're interchangeable. You can flip them over so you get the cleaner side, but these aren't really that scuffed up that bad. I don't feel like they're ready or scuffed up enough to warrant me to flip them over just yet. I only got a few hundred miles on it. Okay, all right, 2 brandy new crisp motors. I'm psyched. All right, first thing I'm gonna do is feed the wire through and get this nice and lined up. I am only going to put them in finger tight for now. We still have to put on the belt and get it at the right tightness. I want to make sure those two line up nice and even and straight. Slide it in, make sure it's in nice and tight, and then just lock it right inside the housing so it keeps it together. Nothing to worry about. Now I'm going to do the same for this side. Okay, so now, all right, so I got the motors on. I don't have them tight yet because we got to put our belts on. But before I do, let's clean up some of the pots. The inner washer. The inner washer. All right, let's get the 2 outer washers in. That thin, 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 thin. Very thin. Bit of white lithium grease. Okay, I feed that in. All right. My dog just wound up the dog next door, so he's going to be barking again for a few minutes. All right, we have the outer bearings in. They're ready to go. I got my inner washers. Now I'm going to do the thin layer of white lithium. Again, when I say thin, I mean skim. Okay, so the reason why I make sure the outer ones are in first, so I can help keep the wheel straight when I push in the inner ones. Now remember, these wedge in a little bit harder than the outside ones. So, a little slap, a little tap, good to go. So now, let's get our belts on and tighten them. Now here's the thing. When it comes to the belts, it's like if you ever replaced a belt on your vehicle, you want to make sure, let me get the washer and the nut. And I'm just going to tighten it up. Again, I apologize about the dog barking. And then just back it off and make sure it's snug. All right, now, while we're tightening up the belt, we don't want to just tighten up all the way so it's rock hard. We want to leave a little bit of play. So I just have my thumb pushing off the truck itself, giving me just a little bit of play. That feels good. Make sure they're snug. But then just go around like you would the lug nuts on your tire when you're tightening, kind of cross pattern. And make sure the belt is good. Then I'll get my dust cover. And then I'll just do the same on the other side. All right, so now I'll take the 6mm. Let me get these spares aside. And see how much garbage and trash is underneath this part of it. But all I'll do is kind of lift it up because these are not seated. You see the leaves and everything that go underneath there? These are not flush and seated up against the board because the board is flexible. So it needs to have a little leeway. So I'll just make sure there's no garbage, leaves, or debris underneath there anymore. And clean it out really nice. Now, make sure everything is lined up, the wires, correctly before you start tightening it back down, so you don't pinch any of the wires or cause issues. And that's it. And then I will do the same thing on the battery side. All right. And I'll just take a towel and just kind of wipe all the leaves and crap away. Okay, so one of the things you want to do is double check to make sure that the battery is tight. I've had this vibrate loose before, and went to start on my board, start the bike path, ready to go, and it just turned on a yellow light, wouldn't start up, wouldn't go for me. And that was an indication that this had wiggled loose, so that's why I always make sure I keep a pair of these with me. Now, the same thing, after I get done cleaning, I line it up right, make sure the wire is straight, and I'll start off with the center ones. Just get them started. Start by tightening all the way up the centers. And the four ends, I'll go diagonally across from each other. I'll make sure it's nice and tight. And that's it. That's how I clean and maintain all the movement mechanisms and everything on the board, and that's how you swap over the motors. So listen, these are just tips and tricks and things that I've learned over time, and it's just my opinion on how to keep this board operating right and nice and clean. And that's it. Whenever I have to do a deeper cleaning, just to go over a couple other things that I'll use, Bones also makes this bearing washer cleaner. It's got these spaces that you put the bearings in between, take off the dust covers, you fill it up with this orange citrus cleaner, put them in here, shake it up a bit, and clean them up, and you see all the dirt and debris that comes off, all the crap it builds up. They'll surprise you. I'm not due for that yet. Another thing that I'll do is, I don't know if you've ever seen this grip tape cleaner. It's like this gummy stuff that you just kind of rub on the board where the dirty spots are, and it cleans it up for you. Just go in other directions, all kinds of directions to clear it up. The last thing, when I first bought my board, and this is just me being a little nitpicky, the trucks themselves, whenever I would kind of cut a stair on it, had this creaking noise. So something I learned, I looked up, was paraffin wax. Never heard of it, but you can just get it at your local market. I got it at Stop and Shop up the road, and it's the stuff that they melt and they add scented stuff to make candles and that kind of thing. But you take this wax and you grate it out. I had this little tiny cheese grater thing, and when you take off the nut to the trucks and you separate the lock and washer, you kind of put it in between the nipples themselves and the lock and washer, and then you tighten it back up to whatever your adjustment is, the way you like it, and that'll help prevent that creak when you're staring and cutting on the board. It just kind of driving me a little bit crazy that I was making that creaking noise. So, all right, that's it. That's all my tips, tricks, and everything that I do to try to keep this thing in working order. So, if you do anything that's different from the way I do it, or something I'm not doing at all, please share below. Let's share, be a community about this, and help each other keep our boards running as optimal as possible. But hey, thank you for watching. Thank you for checking out my channel. If you stood the whole, I don't know how long this is going to take after I edit it, maybe 20 minutes or so, I'm hoping, at most. I'd like to cut it down even shorter, but if you stuck around for the whole thing, thank you very much. If you liked it, hit like. If you want to see more, I don't just do booster board stuff. I kind of travel all around New England, show off the areas, find my drones. So if you want to see more on my channel, hit subscribe. Be a subscriber. That's it. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Later.